Hey guys, it's Bob on and I'm back with another video. So a little while ago I was working on some OC sketches on stream. I usually like to draw these awkward angles to practice. And someone asked me if I had seen the Freiren chin, which I had not, so I looked it up. Let's move those further off to the side and we'll have a better look at Freiren. So this is by SpaceDev1 and has become a meme apparently. Before I get into it, I do have a longer video available on the Patreon on specifically the neck and underside of the chin area that goes into more detail on how I draw these angles. I also post all my sketches there if you'd like to see more of these. You will also get all of my videos early there if you subscribe. I do have a video that is free on YouTube about drawing heads and faces at awkward angles. I will put a link through to that at the end of the video. This isn't bad. I can see the problem that's happening though. So if I go and redline this quickly, and I draw over the face, you can see we've got one angle here for the face, and we have something else for the chin. So if I was to go and draw the chin first, like this, and attach the face to it, I would probably angle the head back like this. So it would go this way. And then if I take the chin and this angle off, if I was to draw the front of the face first, like this, and then add the chin, it would probably be more like this kind of shape to follow on from that face. I've done some quick sketches of these two angles that I think are included here, so let's put these in red. What it is that's being drawn here and understood fairly well is how to draw an ear at this angle, how to draw the face at this quite forward facing angle here, the side of the face and the outline of the side of the face here where we've got the cheek rolling down to where the chin would be. And it is a bit further back where it goes along here and rolls up, but there is an understanding of this curve along here of the side of the jawline. And if you're doing okay with that angle, I imagine you can draw the chin too, even though it is not drawn at that angle in this example. If we look at this other one, you can see there's clearly an understanding that if you view someone from below and their chin is tilted up, this is the shape that you get, and that is quite clear in the drawing. It's just that the rest of it does not match up with the rest of this angle. So the eyes still look like this top one where they're front on, so does the nose, so does the ear. I will highlight some of this curve around and down the neck too, because I think that's also picked up in this curve along here. So in the difference between these two, you can see what is and what isn't understood and what is coming across in the drawing. I think it's quite clear that this second one is the intent for the angle, but where there is sort of a blind spot here of not understanding how to draw the face at an angle that follows on from that chin, the knowledge of how to draw the face from this angle gets substituted into that. And let's move over and do some science quickly. We're ended up with this. And then clearly in the face here, what is happening is where the overlapping here is a struggle, where there would be an eye behind here, and we have the nose kind of at an awkward angle that covers it up. The nose is moved up a little bit, but not quite enough to overlap, and so is the mouth and the other eye. So what we end up with is the addition of both of these bits of understanding that don't necessarily make a complete face. So we end up with a composite of these two angles. So genuinely, this is not bad. This is still a struggle that I have. It might not be as obvious, but where you have these blind spots that I've marked out in red, your brain is auto-correcting to fill that in with what you already know. Especially where perspective and foreshortening like this is really difficult and you have features that are overlapping and things that get obscured, it can be really difficult to process all that. So your brain will sort of fill in these gaps and you will end up with a composite angle like this. Like I say, this is something that I still fight with and notice myself doing. I notice where my brain starts to substitute in angles that I'm familiar with or soften the more extreme angles as I'm drawing, which is very frustrating when you start noticing it, but knowing that that is what's going on can help a lot. I would be interested to hear in the comments if there's anything similar that you notice that happens when you're drawing or any other sort of process in your brain when you're fighting with something difficult like this. Anyway, we are onto the time lapse now. One thing that can help is drawing the head at a softer angle like I did there and then starting to pull it around and rotate it now that you've got something that is easier to understand and not so heavy on the overlapping. So being able to see her in more of a profile at that angle made it a lot more easy for me to follow that on and turn the head around so that it was facing you instead. You can see through the process of this as well where I do start to fight with it and the angle starts to soften and I have to drag it back into line. So I sketched it a few times throughout this over the top of the previous sketch. So her eyes were wanting to tend more outwards and more downwards so that we could see more of them, and I had to just drag them back into place. You can see I did it there actually. I will be posting the process sheet of these also, so everything is next to each other and you can compare it. This looks like I'm starting the lines, but I'm actually not. This is me doing another sketch to tidy it up to make sure it is looking how I want it. I feel like I should give some context on why I like drawing these awkward angles also. So I have drawn a lot of emotes for people. A lot of them are very silly faces. A lot of them are references to different memes. So I've got a lot of experience drawing the same character at different angles with different faces, and some of them at awkward angles. I've also done a lot of my own ones that are sillier faces on purpose with those more extreme angles to play it up. But just in general, I like drawing silly faces for fun and seeing how messed up I can make them. And the more angles you can do, the more extreme you can make that generally. If anything, I usually complain about anime characters and drawing them because their faces are so simplified and smooth that there are not as many reference points for you to be able to put down wrinkles or bone attachments. Whereas when I draw something very chin wrinkly, it seems counterintuitive, but having more reference points like that and more lines to draw makes it a lot more easy. I think that's why some of this is a pain as well, because do you line the outline of the chin? Do you outline the shadow? Do you put more little notches for the chin bones? I think what makes the chin even more difficult as well is that it can look very strange if you do line it like that, because it's not a very hard edge. You have a roll around the form as it transitions from one plane into another. So you'll see how I go forward from this sketch and having it blocked out as a shape in the sketch through to just blocking this out mostly with the shading and color rather than carrying that line all the way through. So it looks fine in my sketches where I'm trying to show the form without adding any shading or any other detail that's going to indicate that shape. But if I were to carry that line through, it would probably look strange and kind of like a wedge of cheese or a doorstop. As I'm doing the lines now, you can see I'm going to add a tiny bit in at the corner where we might get some shadow around her hair, but I'm not going to line the whole thing. My advice would be that if you're not going to shade the chin in any way, if you're not going to add hatching in the line art to put shadows like that in, or if you're going to go and shade or paint, cell shade maybe, like I'm going to do here and block the chin in, I would not line it, because your brain is going to autofill, if you've got the face angle correctly, what is going on with the chin. Not in the way that I mentioned previously, where your brain tries to correct things into a softer angle, but your brain will understand what is going on down there and understand that that is the chin, even if it's not shaded. So, for example, in my line art, you can tell what angle her face is at. You can tell just from the tiny bits of line art and shadow along the corner and the side that her chin is tilted upwards. I'll bring in some more remote examples actually. So the stage that this Freiren is at right now with that cell shading and just having the curve of the chin blocked in for the shadow underneath it, It's about the same as what I have in this example, so as I'm drawing them, I will usually block out that curve and then not follow the lines through and just block it in as a colour. Anyway, now the cell shading is done, I'm going to fancy it up a little bit. I thought I would add some bounce light to the underside of her chin to show up more of that plane underneath there, and also to show how I am going to shade the edge of that shadow on her chin so that it's not too harsh, but we've still got the curve there without needing to resort to line art. So because I'm shading this instead of hatching it or just leaving it as the lines, I'm trying to focus on those soft transitions between the planes here to build that form out. I'll bring in some core and occlusion shadows later also, just to fill it out, but you could absolutely leave it as a single color cell shade. I did think about doing that, but I thought we would lose a lot of the form in there. I do have the chins tutorial on the Patreon actually that I mentioned earlier. I'll put another link to that now. And then once I start to get fed up of the cell shading in the layers that I have, this is all just on different multiply layers and overlay layers to bring in a bit more colour, I will start overpainting and bring in some different little subsurface scattering and things in just to brighten it up. At this point it does just start to turn into me doing some light rendering to show up the planes a bit more so that you can see them. There are still some things about this that are bothering me, but I'm going to stew and chew on it like I usually do and kind of roast myself later. Maybe go and draw 1,000 more faces at awkward angles. Again, I feel like she ended up looking a bit more like my character that I showed early on in the video, the little sketches, just because I've been drawing so much of those recently. She looks a little bit too baby-faced maybe for actual Freiren. I don't know, let me know what you think. There was also an issue I was having with this angle recently, and I figured out that I was making the foreheads a little bit too straight upwards, kind of at a 90-degree angle from the chin when they should really tilt back and foreshorten a bit more, but I've got it a bit better in this one from studying and identifying that as a problem. Honestly, these angles are just hell to draw. That's kind of, that's just how it is. You gotta draw them 1,000 times and then go and look at references and study from them, identify what the problem is, redraw it again 1,000 times, look at what you've drawn, see what looks wrong, take some notes, go and compare it to references in life, and you will start to get it. It's a lot of fuss and a lot of effort. I am starting to get to the end of this now, so it's all these little bits of shine and detail on it. I didn't want to overdo it too much or spend too long. It's a little bit of a rush now, it's the end of the year. I could not resist drawing the chins presented with the opportunity. I added a bit of a halo of blue light around her as well to reflect in from what we've got in the sky and just to separate out some of these layers, so where she's got her ear in front of her hair. And also to reflect into the edge of the white, just where it starts to turn into shadow on her cape. I think it's a cape. While I was working on this on stream also, I was talking about how it seems odd in the design that she's got a striped pirate shirt. Like, she either makes me think of a pirate, an Onion Johnny, or like she's just escaped from prison. Like, one of the three. It seems very counter to the rest of her design. I'm not sure if it has to do with something, because I haven't watched everything that's out yet. I was on season 2 and I haven't quite finished watching. I assume it's just to break up the space, but I thought the black and white stripes were very odd. That's why I drew the little tricorn pirate hat on the reference earlier in the video. Now we're into the last little details, so I'm painting more around her eyes and making sure that her eyelids are still in there and not getting covered up, and adding the colours and the shine and a bit more line weight just around the nose to balance out the shadows there. And now she will be getting some more highlights on the pupils and the actual pupils themselves. I have a bad habit of leaving the eyes until quite late on in the process. I don't like to get distracted by tiny little details that are usually on them. I did also add some boost and some shine onto the gems that she's got on her cape and on her earrings, so they've got a bit of glow popping out from them, and also some difference in the skin tone as well, just to boost that up because it was looking kind of flat. Especially with the more purple-ish shading and the blue bounce light, I thought it looked a bit strange, so I brought in some yellow and pinks just to warm it up slightly. Even though she's quite pale, I usually do a lot of variation in the skin tones just to warm them up and do kind of color zoning. Keeping her pale and trying to do that at the same time was quite difficult as well. A lot of this I did with the airbrush too, to make sure that all of those transitions between the planes were softer, because like I say, she's a very smooth-faced anime lady. And there we go, we're done. Thanks for watching. I hope this helped. If it did, give us a like, share if you think it'll help someone else, and subscribe for new videos early on the Patreon. I will put links down in the description to all the videos and tutorials I've mentioned here, and also the head angles video that I mentioned at the start of the video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye!